All right, and welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. Welcome to the 3rd anniversary of Crusher Convo, and I will be discussing the one and only Admiral Beverly Crusher. And not just what makes her amazing, but her accomplishments and best moments. So I'm very, very excited. Hello to the Crushies out there, and Trekkers and Trekkies and Bevheads and Prosperers, or whatever you want to call yourself here in the Star Trek universe. I'm so happy to have you guys here. I'm so excited to be celebrating my 3-year with you guys. So I'm going to be checking the chat right now. And we have Kimberly Ann Hart. I am a Pink Ranger fan, just so you know. I am a millennial kid, okay? And yeah, the Pink Ranger, Amy Jo Johnson, that was my favorite. I even had like that plushie doll and stuff. Just a little fun fact for you guys. And here is Grayson. Hi, Grayson. Thank you for joining tonight. Here is Sean. Hello. Live long and prosper. And Kimberly says, Gates McFadden, ta-da, I have arrived. Yes, exactly. And did anyone become a fan of Beverly? We are all a fan of Beverly. So happy to be here and happy for you to join me tonight. And Grayson says hi and hello, Joel. Thank you for joining me. But before I get started, of course, I got to show my sponsor. So, Cherry Tree Incorporated. If you love board cubes, computers, and you love Klingon keyboards, and sometimes they like to joke and say there's triple mouses, which I think they should actually try to do, because I think that would be kind of cool. Or even little cat figures on board cubes that light up that you could see right behind me. Just go to their website at mycherrytree.com and use my code CrusherConvo6 to get 6% off your entire order, and also follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated. Wanted to throw that out there real fast. Sean says, definitely Pink and Blue Ranger. They were good. I do like them. And R.I.P. to was it Jason David Frank? Was it? He was green and white. That was so tragic. My heart broke when that happened. But yeah, so as you can see, it is my 3rd anniversary, and of course I'm going to be talking about Beverly Crusher, but I wanted to kind of showcase her accomplishments of what makes her so special, and also as a doctor and as just a person overall. So I picked out some little tidbits that I wanted to show you, created some videos for you. But before I go ahead and get into that, I want to showcase one of my fan cams. I'm going to show 2 today. So I'm going to show one now, and then I'm going to show one at the end of my live. And so, yeah, I'm sure you guys have seen it. I've posted it before, but this I felt kind of like represented the best of Beverly. And so that's why I wanted to showcase it. But here is my Like a Prayer.
We spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
I love making fan cams. Those are my favorite. I have a lot of videos out there on my other YouTube account. So if you want to hit me up there, just go to Jester Nene, Nene, and you'll find all of my stuff there. Also, Once Upon a Time, Days of Our Lives. I have a whole slew of videos. But one thing that I thought of is when the Starfleet Academy trailer had come out, and everyone saw that it was showing the cadets and it had all the names in the backgrounds. And of course, Admiral Beverly Crusher was up there and it said Lieutenant Junior Grade Wesley Crusher, which technically that's been uncanonized because they deleted all his scenes in Nemesis. So he's no longer a junior grade. He's just been a traveler this whole time. I'm going to let slide because he was at the table in the movie. So we got to give him credit somewhere. Did not see Jack Crusher in there, though. I believe, was it Leslie that pointed it out on Threads? She believed Jack's name was under Chekhov. So hopefully that's true. I don't know. I didn't see Picard. I thought that was interesting. But we did see a slew of other names up there. We saw Riker, we saw Troy, we saw Tasha, Data. It said Tawny Newsome, because she is a writer for Starfleet Academy instead of showing Mariner Beckett, so a lot of different names. Of course, they had the TOS characters and things. So that was really, really good. But I was all like, Beverly became an admiral at the end of season 3 of Picard. And I kind of wanted to just, again, showcase some of those really cool things about her character. So I am going to go ahead. First, I'm going to go to the comments. And where are we? David, happy anniversary, Jesse. Thank you so much. And Val says, hey, everyone. Hi, Val. I can't wait to share your story because she gave a penny, and so did Grayson. So very, very excited to be sharing that later on. So here's the first thing that I'm going to be talking about. And this is actually about, I'm probably going to butcher this name, and I probably did when I recorded this, but the Korkorali 5 Phyrox plague. All right. So just hang in there, okay? There's a lot of technobabble, but I did my best, okay? Korkorali 5 saw an outbreak of Phyrox plague in 2366. A medical away team from the Enterprise D, including Dr. Beverly Crusher, successfully eliminated the plague, and Starfleet Command would subsequently consider the incident classified. The members of the Enterprise medical away team were recognized for their actions by being made honorary citizens of the planet. Dr. Crusher would keep a plaque representing that honor with her in 2384 and later in 2401. So again, I wanted to highlight that because we did see that plaque in the beginning of Picard. Okay, it was on the Helios, and then we also saw it in Prodigy when she was in London raising Jack. So, it was this little moment in Allegiance that was mentioned when Picard was trying to get his way out of that maze box, and he realized that cadet wasn't really a cadet, right? Because she mentioned the Phyrox plague, and she wasn't supposed to know about it. It was classified. So, but Beverly had this plaque because she eradicated, okay? She destroyed this plague that was destroying the citizens, which is why they were honored, because they basically saved the planet. Okay, so let's think about that for a hot second. She eradicated a plague. Okay, her and her team. Okay, because she never can do anything on her own. Her team is very, very important. So again, this is one of those things where Beverly is just really good at her job. And these are the moments that I think sometimes people forget. And I'm going to be mentioning something later on because I've been noticing this on social media. But it just shows how good Beverly is of just, she always loves a mystery, right? So she's always very good at just trying to pinpoint a problem and figuring it out. And that is why she's in medicine. She was Arvada 3. We're not really sure what happened on Arvada 3, but clearly it was a planetary disaster, and it was her grandmother that taught her how to use roots and herbs and stuff to create medicine to save people. And that's what gave her that little bug, to go into medicine. But it wasn't just medicine, it was science. She loves the science. She loves figuring things out. And science is a huge, she's also a science officer. She works on data. She does all of that kind of stuff. So I thought it was really cool to just kind of showcase that little moment that I think people kind of forget about. Okay. Now, everyone in the chat, please mention anything you love about Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden, whatever you want to do, because this is what we're celebrating. We're celebrating a Starfleet legend. There's plenty out there. It's not like she's the only one, but she is a Starfleet legend. There is a reason her name was on that list in the 32nd century of Starfleet Academy. Okay. And Grayson says, science. Yes, science is the shiz, as I like to call it, which will make my daughter cringe. But that's, I'm a mom. That's my job. This next one, again, was little moments that you could overlook, but I think it played a huge role when it came to the Borg. So here is, and of course I'm going to say this wrong, but I'll do my best. Cybernetic regeneration. In 2364, Dr. Beverly Crusher was working on an approach with combined cybernetics and regeneration. When the Enterprise D visited Starbase 74, she went to see Dr. Terrence Epstein so they would have a conversation about this approach. In 2368, Dr. Toby Russell made an effort at charming Dr. Crusher by saying she had the pleasure of reading Crusher's paper on cybernetic regeneration. Russell described the paper as brilliant and how she believed Crusher's idea on bioactive interfaces was revolutionary. Okay, so cybernetic regeneration. She mentions it in season 1 in that binary episode. I can't do it by memory. I think it's like 11000101, something like that. Close enough. But she's fascinated by this, okay? Cybernetics and regeneration. And then, of course, what happens in a couple of years? The Borg and Picard becoming Locutus. That definitely paved a way, I think, for that. And also in the sense of, I think I put in here that Beverly was already heading towards that kind of technology and they hadn't even met the Borg yet, right? So that was in the season 1 episode. So this is probably why she knew how to help Picard in the way she did and why she wrote the paper later on, because she had more experience with it. So she wrote this paper in season 5, which is what, Toby Russell was like, oh my gosh, you're a godsend, which, Toby Russell's not one of my favorites because all she cares about is research and not people. And that's why she butted heads with Beverly. But another thing too is Beverly's always thinking outside the box. And that's why this Terrence Epstein or whatever, she was like, oh, this is fascinating. This is like revolutionary, just like Russell had said. This is something that I could totally jump on this bandwagon and figure out, not even realizing how important it was going to be later on, right? So Kimberly says, Beverly, a lot has happened from 30 years. No joke, right? I mean, just from what we see her in season 1 of TNG all the way at the end of Picard season 3, that lady went through some... Sorry, Mom, but that lady went through some shit, okay? And it never stopped her, though, to figure things out and to also not only be a damn good doctor and a damn good scientist, but it never stopped her from being a damn good mom, okay? And also her ability to be amazing at just caring for people, okay? I'm wearing my kindness, like be kind like Crusher shirt, because that is what Beverly was. She was always kind to every single human, species, alien, whatever you want to call it. And she treated them with respect. And she definitely made sure that they were taken care of. Okay. And so that is one thing that one of those biggest things why I love Beverly Crusher. Grayson says, good call. I never put those together. Wait till my Lex video, Grayson. Okay. I'm going to be talking more about the Borg. Val says she had the perfect blend of compassion and strength. Yes, preach. Okay. So this is definitely something that why we also loved when she didn't agree with Picard half the time. She would do what he said. That is her commanding officer. She's going to do it, but she will fight him on it. And she would make sure to be like, hey, I don't agree with you guys, and I'm going to put my foot down. As long as it makes sure that no one's getting hurt in the process, right? Kimberly says exactly. And J. Marie, hi, thank you for joining us tonight. So excited. So again, this is just one of those abilities of where Beverly can think outside the box and create something and, try to figure things out. And I think this was one of them. I think this is one that really headed her into that direction. And for Grayson's point, this now kind of leads to my next one, which was basically the Borg project. Now, the Borg Reclamation Project doesn't exactly include Beverly, but I feel that her efforts in unassimilating Picard in Best of Both Worlds and helping Hugh and Borg is what started this project. The Borg Reclamation Project was an independent organization operating at the Romulan Reclamation Site located on a derelict Borg cube known as the Artifact. It was overseen by an executive director, which in 2399 was Hugh, himself a former Borg drone. Okay, so now heading straight into Iborg, like I was just saying, she would put her foot down if she knows that she feels like they are doing something wrong. In Iborg, she was like, we cannot use this individual to end their species. Like, there is something wrong with this. I know the Borg is bad. I know they did some shit to Picard, but that is not the way to handle it. Now, she was kind of outvoted because everyone was like, nope, we're going to do it. So she was helping, but not in... She didn't really feel like, I got to figure out a way out of this. And she mentioned a lot of stuff. So like when she was helping Geordi, she was kind of putting little things in his head, right? She was kind of letting him know why she doesn't agree with this. And yes, I'm helping you, but I don't have to like it. Okay. And with Hugh, there was subtle changes with him, especially because he was a kid. And that definitely like hit that mama bear moment in her. And J. Maurice just says, go after her children and Mama Bear will end you, right? She will do that with really any child, okay? Hugh was an adolescent. He wasn't an adult, okay? And that is where she was all like, no, we cannot use him as an instrument of destruction. And because she had already, now Picard wasn't fully assimilated, so she was able to take out the nanoprobes and all those kind of things. I don't know what it was called, implants, okay. But when we go into like Seven's story, right, she's fully assimilated. She's been assimilated for 20 years. She has literally implants and things, no eye, all of it. Now, the doctor, the EMH, was able to help her. But how did the EMH get that, right? How did he learn how to do that? And I think it's just because, forgive me guys, I don't remember the doctor that created the EMH, that little asshole character that Robert Picardo played. But he had to put in the EMH of like, this is how you handle this situation. Okay, this is how you cure this. This is what you do here. You know, it was a program. So he was programming it of how to take care of certain things. Well, Borg stuff probably wasn't on his list, but I'm sure he probably just put in the whole database of like, this is what's happening. And even because the doctor was a little bit more sentient in a sense, he probably did some research and he's like, hey, look at that. You know, cybergenetic regeneration. Let's figure this out. Let's see how this works. You know, Beverly Crusher did it to, Jean-Luc Picard. She also did it for Hugh, in a sense, because like he was still a Borg, but she did work on his implants and she learned a lot. Okay, so did Geordi. So that's where I mentioned this because I don't think we would have gone as far as we did with Seven or even with these XBs, these former Borgs, and Hugh being a Federation citizen, and, this technology of unassimilating these former Borgs. It all started with Beverly. It had to. She was the first one to ever have to return a person back from someone who was being assimilated. Even if it was partially assimilated, She was the one throwing in that science. She was the one figuring it out. And because she already started with the cybernetic regeneration, she was already headed into that direction. I think I put here that, okay, a lot of the technology was used for unassimilated XBs. We're very telling that Beverly played some type of role in this. Even if she didn't directly work on the project, she was the first to start all of this by helping Picard in Best of Both Worlds. Okay? So, again, those are those little, I'm doing the red string, guys. I am just mapping things together as best as I can. But when you have these little moments and then you see something 20, 30 years later, it starts to make sense, right? And Beverly was good at her own craft in a certain way, and this was it. This was her lane. This is what she loved to figure out and figure out those puzzle pieces. Grayson says Zimmerman. Sure. Dr. Zimmerman, I think that was his name. J. Marie says 7 was only possible because of Beverly. And then J. Marie also said Zimmerman, maybe. Yes. So, again, if it wasn't for Beverly, who figured out how to help Picard, we wouldn't have been able to have that tech to help all of those XBs and 7. And maybe that's why 7 knew Beverly. Granted, Beverly, when she left Starfleet, she was working for the Mariposa's medical team. Okay, she was associated with them. And then, 7 also was working with them as a Finnish Ranger. So I'm sure they crossed paths. Maybe Beverly helped 7 in a lot of ways. Maybe she helped her try to, work on the implants that she still had, or maybe any issues that she still had. She knew that Beverly was someone that she could trust because she couldn't really trust Starfleet either at the time. And she was also mad at Starfleet. So it kind of like played hand in hand. And all we saw is that, in season 3, when Picard tried to explain, like, oh, she's the former doctor of the Enterprise. She's like, yeah, I know who she is. We don't know why she knows, but I feel like that plays a role. Okay? It's all connected. I'm just saying. But this kind of goes into my last video. And this, of course, starts talking about season 3 of Picard. In No Win Scenario, Beverly explained that she had been counting the period between the energy waves from the gravity well striking the ship, a pattern that matched that of contractions leading to childbirth. It was her calculations that helped them escape the gravity well. In The Last Generation, Beverly is promoted to Admiral and named the head of Starfleet Medical, where she develops a transporter technique to purge the Borg code introduced by the Changeling, as well as more easily detect Changeling infiltrators. Okay, this is why she became an admiral. And I know people questioned well, how did she become an admiral when she wasn't even a captain? It's a fair question because she wasn't in Starfleet. But, like I said, she was on the, Mariposas. She was helping planets that Starfleet had forgotten, and she was helping those planets in bringing medical supplies, and they were doing even stuff illegally, which is why Jack had a long list of a bad rap. But she was smart enough that even when she's on the ship, okay, she saved Shaw, okay, because their doctor didn't realize the difference of like, hey, internal bleeding doesn't happen until later, okay? And then she also saved Jack, okay, she brought him back. And then when they were stuck in the gravity well, instead of her just being all like, wow, this is weird, she's like, I'm going to count, I'm going to figure this out. And then all of a sudden she's like, this nebula is a womb and we're swimming in its amniotic fluid and stuff is happening. And if we're hitting with these smaller waves, which are like smaller contractions, she's like, that big one where they're pushing out that baby, we're going to die. Like she just figured it out on her own instead of just sitting around being mopey. And I don't want to say Picard was being mopey, but he kind of was. But I guess he didn't know. Like he's not a science officer. Her brain's constantly moving. Okay. And Also, he's still reeling over the fact like, oh shit, I have a son and I want to spend my time with him, especially after that talk he had with Riker. But I think they took that in consideration. Okay, so even they got themselves out of the gravity well because of Beverly. Okay, and even at the point when they had to, shut off life support, Riker was like, all right, it's all you, Beverly. Like, these are your calculations. If it works, you calculated it correctly. If it's not, we're going to die anyways. So might as well see if we did it. And sure enough, she was right. And of course, with the help of Jack and Picard, I mean, she said, look at us, all around us. Like, let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at. We're all here together. We could all figure it out. Like, she doesn't have an ego to the point of saying like, well, look at me, I saved the ship. No, she's like, we all did. We all played a part and we're all figuring it out. Sorry guys, I got some hair sticking up and it's driving me nuts. Okay. It's fine. But that's just how Beverly is. She is a team player. She gives people where credit is due. Okay. And that is what I love about her. And again, I love a lot of things about Beverly. That's another thing I love about Beverly. And so that really showcased that. Real fast in my chat here. Jay Marie says, I bet Seven met Beverly sometime before Picard season 3. Absolutely. Probably years before. I think they were very close. Jay Marie says, we need a book. Yes. Trust me, I've been trying to get Dayton Ward to write a book about those 20 years. So maybe he might be able to do it. Dave, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Happy 3rd year. You are one of my Patreon members, and I appreciate you so, so much. Back to my rant of like, how did she become an admiral? So put that all in place, right? Then they're out, and then all of a sudden they're running away from Starfleet, right? Because there's something wrong. They figure out it's the changelings. They're trying to figure out to save Jack. And even as they bring the band back together, okay, and they stop the Borg, all of this stuff happening. And then she decides like, okay, we stopped the Borg, we saved Jack, great. I'm sure Jack was in trouble for a hot second, but I'm sure they got over it. She figured out a way of like, well, I'm going to use the transporter to stop the code and also find the changelings that are still around and we can catch them. Like, again, that woman's brain is never stopping. And so at this point, I think Starfleet was like, we got to promote her. And I'm going to assume that the director of Starfleet Medical died during that whole, Borg invasion. Because then all of a sudden, like, we're going to make her the director. Okay? Because not only did she escape a gravity well, but she also helped stop the Borg. And she also infiltrated the transporter. They figured out the code. I mean, she had Geordi. She had Data. Like, again, she has a team. She works well with the team. That's what she does. That's why, as a medical doctor, she has a team with her. When they did the Korkorali 5 and stopped the Fyrox plague, it was her team that was on it. It wasn't just her. So for Starfleet, they're like, we're going to need you back. Can you please come back? You've done a lot, and we've noticed that this is what we need for Starfleet Medical. And then, yeah, I'm assuming they were just like, and to be the director, we're going to promote you. You had basically been a captain on the Helios, right? She was the captain of that ship. She was the one really manning everything. Jack was her partner, but he was also her son. And so she told him what to do, whether that be a partner or her son. And she probably also put together, times of like, okay, we're going to go to this planet and we're going to do this. And then we're going to go, to this and help over here. Like, she just delegated the work to help people. And that's what a captain will do. And she would never put herself first over her crew and all of that. And I think she learned that also from Picard. I'm sure she learned that a lot from her I want to say first husband. It was her only husband, but Jack. And, she carried that with her. I mean, if you kind of think about it, in the beginning of season 3 of Picard in the Next Generation, she's listening to logs of Picard. She's, carrying information that she learned so she can be like, okay, this is what they did and this is what I'm going to have to do. So again, Beverly was not someone who just figured it out on her own. She also used the wisdom of everyone around her, especially those who she trusted the most. And as much as she wasn't around Picard anymore, she carried him close with her as much as she could, with the wisdom that he had on the Enterprise. Like, she trusted him with her life. And so I think that was also played a very big part in her figuring out also, just going deep into like, we got to stop these changelings and we got to take out the Borg code out of all of our people. Because even the Borg code was in them, but because they were older, it didn't affect them like it did the younger generation. J. Maria says, after the Borg attack, Starfleet was likely in chaos, and historically they were always trying to put her in charge of medical. Very true. She was in charge of Starfleet Medical in season 2. And, she most likely came back on the Enterprise because she missed Wesley. She was one that was able to choose between her work and her kid, but she gave herself the opportunity. She knew Wesley was going to be safe, but at the end of it, after a year, she was like, all right, I did it. I had fun. This was great, but I want to see my kid, right? So she demoted herself. But even it wasn't that much of a demotion, because being the CMO of what's it called? The flagship. That's huge. That's huge. Okay. So it wasn't much of a demotion, and she got to be with her son again. So, and of course, that's just the story that they tell us because of everything that was behind the scenes. But this is a perfect little segue, because okay, guys, I love Beverly Crusher. Always love Beverly Crusher. And there's always been this like, well, Pulaski and Beverly and all that. And the thing is, I'm going to just put this out there right now. I've been seeing this a lot. Crusher versus Pulaski. Who's a better doctor? And I've seen so many different things on TikTok and Threads and Blue Sky and podcasts. Well, Pulaski was better because she could give Geordi his vision back, or Crusher was better because she at least was nice to Data, whatever. Okay. Here's the thing, guys. No one is better. These two doctors are equally brilliant in their own way. Now, I think Pulaski got a bad rap because she was brought in at a really shitty time. Everyone knew that Gates got fired. The staff was pissed. And poor Diana got thrown into this whole thing. And because they were trying to make her into a female McCoy, it just didn't fit the TNG vibe. And then because how she treated Data, that even pissed people off even more. Because they were trying to do a McCoy and Spock thing, and it just didn't work out. But, even at the end of season 2, we did see Pulaski start to warm up to Data and start to realize the accomplishments that he could do. I mean, I just did an episode on Humanist Trek with Sarah and Allie, and we talked about a natural selection, okay? Now, there are pros and cons to Pulaski's character, but it's one of those things that it really doesn't matter who's better, because they've both done amazing thing in their own way. And I kind of made a comment about this on the episode. I had said, because someone was trying to tell Sarah and Allie of, well, this is why Pulaski's better. And I was all like, okay, granted, Pulaski can do this and Crusher can't. However, is a brain surgeon better than a heart surgeon because a heart surgeon can't do brain surgery? No. They're just special in their own way, right? Now, people were pointing out about Pulaski being able to give Geordi back his vision, and she's done surgery like that before. But will Pulaski be able to do cybernetic regeneration and be able to bring people back from being assimilated? Probably not. Okay. She too also had a moment in Unnatural Selection where that doctor that I did not like, who was all like, "Are you the Catherine Pulaski who did the blah 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 blah? That's revolutionary," just like Russell said. And of course, Pulaski being as humble as Crusher, she was all like, "Oh, that was a while ago. Thanks though. That's cool." And they're just good doctors, okay? And I've said this before. I bet you Kate and Beverly were besties, okay? I'm sure they talked. I'm sure they knew each other in their little medical circle. She knew about Pulaski's technique about, erasing memory recall. She just couldn't do it to the Matakans because of their brain chemistry. That happens. But they're doctors. They're not in competition. Okay. Will I always say that Beverly Crusher is the best? Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And it's just because I feel close in the sense that, Beverly was a single mom and stuff. And so I could relate to that. I'm not a doctor, but I relate to the single mom aspect of being a career and have a kid. But again, it doesn't diminish the way that Pulaski is and her accomplishments, and it also doesn't diminish Beverly either. Okay. Grayson says, very diplomatic, Jesse. I try. I mean, again, there are certain things that I did not like about Pulaski. I too was very like, bitch please, when she was saying, I can call you Data or Data. What's the difference? But it's also bad writing. And I know we had to kind of like erase that little part because this is part of the story, but it was just part of her story arc. They wanted her to look bad because they wanted by the end of season 2 for her to have this great friendship with Data. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see more of that relationship because Diana was like, peace out. I'm not going to deal with this shit anymore because there was a lot of drama behind the scenes. And like my husband, I mean, he was a child. Like my husband was 5 years old when Pulaski came on and Data was his favorite character. And he was like, as a 5-year-old, I don't like the mean lady because she's being mean to my favorite character. And that's why 6 years old on his birthday, Crusher's back and it's hallelujah, birthday wish come true. But even as an adult, those are the memories he's still hanging on to of like, nope, I don't like her. Not really, now as I've even talked to him and, because I've been doing the podcast and I feel like I kind of stole this show from him because TNG is his favorite, but I've mentioned certain things and he's all like, oh yeah, that makes sense because he's thinking as an adult, not as a child. But even just like with Sub Rosa, everyone's all like, it is a cringe episode. Oh my gosh, it was so horrible and stuff because they saw it as children. And that's what you guys are remembering. I'm not saying for all, I'm just saying for partly. But as you get older and even, kind of look at it differently and as an adult with a, different pair of lenses, it's like, oh, maybe Beverly was being manipulated. Maybe this isn't a ghost and a love story, right? So it's those things that, I like to point out, especially in the podcast of just like, hey guys, let's look at this differently and not to, crush people's opinions about things. Like people can still disagree of what I'm saying about Pulaski and Beverly. People can still say Pulaski's better than Beverly, you suck. Great, that's cool, that's your opinion. But let's also understand that everyone has a favorite. People love the EMH doctor better than Beverly, or people love McCoy better than, Phlox. Like everyone's gonna have a favorite, but that should not put down other people's opinion on their favorites. So I wanted to throw that out there. By the way, Allie and Sarah at Humanist Trek, they are a delight. Please go listen to their podcast. They're kind of like a comedy podcast. They love to have fun. They're not a fan of Pulaski, but we really did get into it and did have a really good conversation. Like we weren't like bashing Pulaski the whole time, okay? It wasn't like that. And then I also got to tell my story about my whole situation that happened to me on the first season of Crusher Convo and everything and my trauma and all that stuff. So we really had a deep conversation and I had a wonderful time. So please, please, please go and listen to that episode on natural selection wherever you like to listen to your podcasts, okay? J. Marie says, my canon is Beverly spent season 2 cleaning up someone else's mess and said, there, I fixed it. Don't screw it up. I'm going back to my ship. I mean, maybe. We don't know who was the director of Starfleet Medical prior to that, right? So maybe she was all like, all right, guys, I did my job. Don't mess it up again. And then she says, I was so happy when I heard Gates was back. J. Marie, I'm kind of curious if I don't know, if you were a child or a little bit older or whatever, or how everyone's opinion was when Gates was gone and came back. Again, I wasn't there. I've only been watching TNG for 3 years, but I know it did affect people. Like some people were pissed. Will Wheaton even said, like, everyone was angry that Gates was fired. I mean, it was just a shitty situation, like absolutely shitty. And it did hurt the show. And it did hurt the writing. And then there's a writer's strike. And it's a miracle that the show survived that long. And I'm glad it did, because we did get brilliant stories and we did get wonderful character development, even though I think we probably should have gotten a little bit more. Okay. So those are my thoughts about Beverly and Pulaski and why Beverly is an admiral and why she kicks ass and all that stuff. But I did reach out to my listeners and wanted to see if anyone had their own thoughts. So here is our Penny for Your Thoughts section.
Penny for your thoughts.
Sorry, I'm just drinking my decaf and my Investigates cup. Please go check her podcast out. So first one, Grayson. All right, Grayson, I loved what you said. I appreciate it so much. So here is what Grayson had to say about not only Beverly Crusher, but Gates McFadden.
Hey, Jesse. I know this is the Crusher Convo and not the McFadden meeting, but in honor of your 3rd anniversary, I can sum up what I love about Admiral Beverly C. Crusher, MD, in 3 words. Gates McFadden. Am I the biggest bevhead? No. But getting to know Gates through podcasts like this one and through her own incredible interviews with other actors on her podcast Investigates, it has changed the way I see Dr. Crusher completely. Hearing about the challenges that Gates faced as an actor in that role, how she developed her craft, how she became both a student and a teacher of performance, it's made me appreciate not just the character, but the woman who brings her to life. Her lived experience, her training, her worldview, it all shapes the way that Dr. Crusher walks through the world on Star Trek. And I see that now in a way that I never did before. So, if these thoughts are actually worth a penny, and I may be a little pretentious because I know this is how Gates would want this pronounced, maybe toss a penny into the Seine off the Pont des Arts Bridge in Paris, where she did some of her early theater training as a thank you to that city that helped shape a performer who created one of Starfleet's most iconic healers. A doctor who didn't just rely on technobabble or space magic, but medical expertise, emotional intelligence, and a long blue coat that she wore the hell out of. Happy 3rd anniversary, Jesse.
Thank you, Grayson, so much for those wonderful, kind words. And as you said in the chat, FYI, I know Gates McFadden is 2 words, just being silly. I mean, you got to put the, really emphasize that, right? Because she is just that cool. But this one I really wanted to highlight, and this was from Valerie, and Valerie is also in the chat right now, and she gave me a wonderful story. And this is why I love these stories from fans when they're talking about why they love Beverly Crusher or any character of Star Trek. Okay, so here is Valerie's story. She says here, from a young age, I was immersed in the world of performing arts, piano lessons, musical theater, choir, you name it. In my early 20s, I developed severe chronic neck pain and was dismissed by doctors until 10 years later, my spine locked and I couldn't move my neck. Essentially, I was paralyzed. This started a litany of tests, doctor visits, physical therapy, etc. Finally, about a year later, I found a doctor who validated my pain and diagnosed the problem: compressed spinal cord and nerve roots and scar tissue and disc fragments choking one of my nerves. This year, I underwent my second spinal surgery in 13 months and was told I may need more surgical procedures in the future. I asked my doctor when I could start dancing again, even taking a beginner adult class. I was told that my spinal cord and nerve had been compressed for so long that I developed nerve damage that may or may not be permanent. Returning to dance or any intense exercise would mean risking further nerve damage. For someone who expresses themselves through movement, this was a hard pill to swallow. Throughout this entire journey, I avidly watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, and the character of Dr. Beverly Crusher offered solace and a glimmer of hope. Watching this show, I'd often fantasized about having access to Dr. Crusher's expertise and Starfleet's advanced medical technology. I imagined a world where diagnosis and treatment wouldn't take a decade of pain and dismissal. Dr. Crusher's presence on screen and her unwavering dedication to her patients provided comfort to me during a time when real-world medicine felt so limited. Her character gave me hope that maybe one day there would be a doctor out there who could and would help me. So bring out the box of tissues. Okay. I want to add to that from someone who also suffers from chronic pain. It is a very it just sucks, okay? When you know something's wrong and no one believes you. It's very lonely. It's very lonely because then you kind of also start to think like, am I losing my mind? Am I nuts? Like, is there something, am I making this up? Like, you start to question yourself, even though in the back of your mind, you're like, something is wrong. I am hurting. And there's no doctor that wants to even look. And I'm kind of dealing with that right now because I've been in 3 car accidents. Okay. This last one was my fault and I lost my car and it sucks and it wasn't as bad, but the first 2 were really bad. But the first one was what really started this whole journey of me having surgeries and physical therapy and being on, opiates for the last 20 plus years. And one of those things too was that as much as the doctors try, they're just like, sorry, I can't help you, take a pain pill and go home. And as I've gotten older, I had another injury that had nothing to do with the car accident. And so when certain things, flare up because I'm stressed or because the weather changed or whatever, my neck, it hurts and it gives me migraines because of it. And so I've told them, I was like, can we please get tests done? Can we do MRIs? And my insurance denies it. Nope, you should go back to physical therapy. Nope, you should do x-rays. And I'm like, why? You're not going to find anything. Like, I already know this. I've done 6 years total of physical therapy. Why would I go back when I could just do it at home? And it's so frustrating. And I remember one time I had to have an MRI and my old pain doctor had noticed that osteoarthritis started to form in my spine, in my neck. And so he's like, we're going to have to look at that. Of course, he decides to go somewhere else and I have another doctor. And now this other doctor, I was like, hey, this is what he said. I think we really should see how bad it is. No, you should go to physical therapy. And it's like they don't even listen. And it's like, why? Again, I've already did. Well, it's been a while. You should go back. Why? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, I'm getting my pain pills and all that stuff just so I can get through the day. But it doesn't take care of the neck problem half the time. Like I could take an opiate, I could take my Norco, but it's not going to take away the pain. I'm still going to have a migraine and I have to take another pill on top of that. And then it knocks me out. On my 40th birthday, that is what happened. I was having severe neck pain that I had a migraine, and after my lunch, I had to go home and I was in bed. That's how I spent my birthday. And it's just so frustrating that I can't even get doctors to listen. And then I'm not even going to go into the politics of the whole, our medical like system here in the States, but it's frustrating. And, like Valerie said, what Star Trek shows is like giving us a glimmer of hope that in the future we're going to have compassionate doctors. And I'm not saying that there is no compassionate doctor out there. I've had some wonderful doctors in my time, but not everyone is a Beverly Crusher, right? So it's one of those things where it's just frustrating, and you see something on TV and you're like, I wish this was real, right? And actually Valerie had, mentioned me in the social media when I was talking about how I had a migraine. She's like, oh, I wish hypo sprays were real. And I'm like, oh, me too. Take a quick little hypo spray and be good to go, right? That's just, so many people suffer no matter what your ailment is. And sometimes I feel like a lot of us get dismissed, and it's frustrating. And so I'm very happy to share Valerie's story and, and also why she fell in love with Beverly Crusher. And it's one of those reasons of why we just enjoy her character. Of all the reasons we've been talking about tonight, that's where, for some fans, it's just that comfort to get us through those really dark times, right? And Val says, it does. I'm sorry you've had similar struggles, but yeah, the imposter syndrome is real. It is real, and it happens so often, and I wish it didn't. So anyways, guys, that was my penny for your thoughts. And so let's go ahead into Redhead Alert. All right, guys, I will be at STLV next week with all you amazing Trekkies. If you are there, please stop by my booth and let's gush about Beverly Crusher. I got free stickers and a mic, and I'm ready for you. There will be no bonus episodes of Strange New Worlds during that week, but I will resume my reactive review of the new episodes on August 14th. And my Patreon shoutouts go to Chuck, Leslie, and Dave, who are my Commander patrons, and Engineer Mark, who is my Admiral patron. If you would like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, like my live reaction of the new Strange New Worlds episodes, please just head over to patreon.com/Crusher Convo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month. All right, I'm super excited about STLV. I hope to see you guys there. And when I say mic, I will have a mic. I will have my phone, and we can do our own little, gush about Bev, or go live, or I could ask you a question, whatever. I am so excited to be talking with you guys. Also, there's other ways to support. Not only can you become a Patreon member, but if, money's tight, you can't do a monthly gift, there's also my QR code right there for Buy Me a Coffee, where you could do a one-time gift. And also, the best way to do it is to subscribe on YouTube, and to also like the videos and share it. That really, really helps. Spread the Beverly love as best as we can, okay? So, going back here, Jay Marie says, I recently had surgery to take care of an issue. Not too bad, but working its way to becoming bad in the future. It was such a relief to get it done. I bet. And I'm sure it was like a long time coming, right? Joel says, I'll see you there at STLV. We're going to have so much fun, Joel. My poor husband, I told him, I was like, just so you know, we're working, okay? This isn't really a vacation. You're going to be helping me and talking about people with Star Trek. I hope that's okay. And he's like, okay. And Gracie says, how cool. Yeah, this is my third time in STLV, first time with the booth. And so I'm just really, I feel just honored to be able to do that. And I thank you guys, especially my Patreon members who have helped me along the way, because none of this is cheap. Okay. Just the hosting and the website and even paying for StreamYard and, all of that stuff. It takes a lot and it's out of my pocket, but I love Beverly Crusher so much. And I hope you guys enjoy my content that I bring out. But yeah, it's been loads of fun, and it's been 3 years, and I am at I think 70 episodes with the podcast. And I've also been privileged with doing interviews. I mean, just from my season 2, my second anniversary to my third, I've talked to John Billingsley, Stephanie Chakowski, Aaron Walke, Mike McMahon, Dayton Ward, Gates McFadden. Okay, that was a treat. Brian Volk Weiss. I've talked to Melinda Snodgrass. The Beverly Crusher Band. I've talked to David, who was in the chat earlier. I feel like I'm missing. I even got to talk to Stephen L. Sears, who has nothing to do with Star Trek. He created Xena, but he knows about Star Trek, and he also almost wrote for the shows. And so those were amazing stories. And I just feel so blessed. Okay. It's been a rough couple of years, but I feel like I've come out of this as a better person. And I thank all of you guys for listening and supporting me and being there for me. It has been such an honor. And I feel like, bringing out that aspect of Star Trek and just, the hope and the kindness and the love and being there for each other is what it's all about. And I have learned that over these last few years. And so it's just been a privilege. And, I hope to have more interviews coming soon. I haven't really been able to set up any just because I've been busy with work, but hopefully I can be able to do more of that soon. But, I'm going to end this with, a thank you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone that was in the chat. Grayson doing a bunch of hand claps. I really appreciate it. And like I said, one more fan cam video. I hope you enjoy it. And then that's it. But thanks guys so much. Live long and prosper. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
I'm back between villages and everything's still.
Don't forget you can listen to all the audio versions of Crusher Convo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can support the podcast by buying merch on TeePublic, buy me a coffee by scanning that QR code, or becoming a Patreon member for as low as $3 a month. But the best way to support Crusher Convo is to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, or TikTok, so please follow me there. And of course, all this information can be found on crusherconvo.com.
Crusher out.